Commander Zyrek stood at the edge of the star map chamber, his silver eyes reflecting the cold light of 1,000 distant suns. Beyond the transparent walls of the Takar command station, space stretched like a dark ocean, dotted with glowing stars and silent nebulae. Normally, Zyrek found comfort in the endless patterns of the galaxy. Tonight, the sight only reminded him how close everything was to being lost. The Vor Dominion was advancing again. Reports from the outer sectors arrived every hour, each message carrying the same grim words: worlds burned, fleets broken, leaders captured. The Vor were not merely conquerors. They were a force of relentless expansion, a storm that consumed entire civilizations and left nothing but silence. Zyrek's people, the Takar, were planners and builders. They loved peace and had built alliances based on careful diplomacy. But peace meant nothing to the Vor. Their war fleets grew larger each day while the scattered coalition of free species struggled to stay united. Zyrek had seen brave captains fight and fail. He had watched friends disappear into the black void of Vor prisons. Every strategy, every fleet formation, every cautious treaty had ended in the same way: defeat. Tonight the council waited in the chamber behind him. They were the wisest leaders of the Takar Union, but their voices had grown tired and slow. They wanted another treaty, another careful delay. Zyrek knew delay would only give the Vor more time to tighten their hold. He stared at the flashing symbols on the star map, each symbol a dying colony, and felt the weight of responsibility press against his chest. "Commander," said Advisor Wren, stepping softly into the room. Her pale blue skin glowed in the dim light. "The council is ready. They await your plan." Zyrek turned, his long coat brushing the polished floor. "My plan will not please them," he said quietly, "but it is the only one left." Wren tilted her head. "You mean the legend?" "Yes." Zyrek's voice was steady, but his heart raced. "The Deathworlders." The word hung in the air like a forbidden spell. Every child of the Union grew up hearing stories of Deathworld 7, a small planet on the edge of an uncharted arm of the galaxy. The ancient records spoke of violent storms, poisonous wildlife, crushing gravity, and endless danger. The creatures who survived there, if they truly existed, were said to be stronger and faster than any known species. Some records called them humans. Others simply called them monsters in human shape. No one in living memory had ever made contact. Explorers who tried either never returned or came back whispering of impossible landscapes and terrifying intelligence. For centuries, the Union had marked the system with a single warning: do not approach. Wren's eyes widened. "Commander, you cannot mean to send the beacon." "They are myths. And if they are real," she lowered her voice, "no one can control them." Zyrek looked back at the star map. "Control is not what we need. We need survival." He walked past her into the council chamber. A ring of leaders rose as he entered, their robes shimmering with the soft colors of their homeworlds. They greeted him with formal bows, but tension filled the air. Everyone could feel the Vor drawing closer with each passing day. High Chancellor Melek, an elder whose voice was usually calm, spoke first. "Commander Thal, we await your proposal. What strategy will keep the Vor from reaching the core sectors?" Zyrek stepped to the center of the room. "Honored Council, there is no fleet strong enough to hold the Vor back. We have lost too many ships. Our allies are scattered. Conventional war is no longer an option." He paused, letting his words sink in. "There is only one chance left to us. We must call for help, from Earth." Gasps echoed around the chamber. Several counselors rose from their seats in alarm. One, a tall figure from the water-world Jireen, struck the table with a webbed hand. "Impossible. The Deathworlders are a myth designed to frighten hatchlings. They are not a myth," Zyrek said firmly. "The ancient beacon network is real. Our ancestors built it as a last defense to summon the strongest allies known to the stars. Records speak of humans, survivors of the most dangerous planet ever surveyed. If even half the stories are true, they are the only beings capable of facing the Vor." "They are dangerous," shouted another counselor. "Legends say they fight even when wounded. They adapt to every environment. They cannot be predicted." Zyrek met their fearful eyes. "Yes, and that is why we need them. The Vor have studied every one of our strategies. They know our habits and weaknesses, but they do not know the Deathworlders." Silence filled the chamber. The counselors looked to one another, seeking a safe answer and finding none. Finally, High Chancellor Melek spoke, his voice heavy. "If the Deathworlders exist, how will we find them?" Zyrek tapped a control panel. The lights dimmed and a hologram rose in the center of the room. A spinning beacon symbol glowed like a small sun. Our ancestors left a signal, he explained. A call across the stars. It can only be activated by a council order. Once sent, it cannot be withdrawn. And if they answer? Melik asked quietly. Then we pray their enemies are also our enemies, Zyrek said. The council argued for hours. Some feared the Vor more than the Deathworlders. Others whispered that summoning such beings might doom them all. Through it all, Zyrek stood calm, though his mind churned with worry. He knew the stories of humans, how they could turn a barren world into a home, how they laughed in the face of storms, how they refused to surrender even when all seemed lost. If these stories were true, the humans might be their only hope. At last, the Chancellor raised a trembling hand. The Vor leave us no choice. Commander Thal, you have authorization to activate the beacon. Zyrek bowed, feeling both relief and dread. I will send the call immediately. Hours later, Zyrek entered the hidden chamber deep within the station's core. The room was older than any ship or city in the Union. Ancient machines lined the walls, their surfaces carved with symbols from a forgotten age. In the center stood the Beacon of Origin, a crystalline tower humming with dormant energy. He approached the control pedestal. Advisor Wren followed silently, her eyes wide with awe. This technology is older than our oldest songs, she whispered. Older than our fears, Zyrek agreed. He placed his hand on the activation stone. It felt cold, as if it had been waiting for this moment for 1,000 years. Once the call is sent, Wren said softly, there is no return. I know. Zyrek took a deep breath. But if we do nothing, the Vor will consume everything. He pressed his palm firmly against the stone. The beacon flared to life. Light shot upward in a column of brilliant blue, piercing the ceiling and racing into the stars. The floor trembled as the signal expanded beyond their galaxy, a pulse of energy carrying a single message written in the ancient language of explorers. To the children of the Death World, the galaxy calls for aid. Zyrek stepped back, heart pounding. The room grew still once more, the beacon's light fading to a steady glow. It is done, he said. Wren looked toward the distant stars beyond the station walls. Do you think they will answer? Zyrek allowed himself a faint, grim smile. If the legends are true, they will. The only question is whether we will survive their arrival. Beyond the station, the beacon's signal raced through empty space, past sleeping suns, silent comets, and forgotten worlds, seeking a small blue planet on the far side of the spiral arm, a planet called Earth, a planet where humans, the galaxy's most feared survivors, might still endure. Far away, on a world of roaring oceans and endless storms, a receiver deep beneath the crust stirred for the first time in centuries. Lights flickered in hidden bunkers. Old machines awakened, and somewhere on Earth, unknown to the Takar, the Deathworlders began to listen. The blackness of deep space was quiet, but every sensor on the Takar flagship began to tremble. Faint signals touched the edge of detection, ripples of movement far beyond the nearest star. Commander Zyrek Thal stood on the bridge, watching the sensor lights flare one by one. The beacon had been sent only 12 days earlier. No ship of the Union could have answered so quickly. Yet something was coming. Multiple warp disturbances, reported Navigator Rel, her voice sharp with surprise. Pattern unknown. Their drive signatures do not match any recorded species. Zyrek felt the air grow tense. Council advisors, engineers, and soldiers turned their eyes to the main display. A dark shadow stretched across the holographic grid. Then sudden light. One by one, massive shapes tore free from the void. Their hulls shone like metal storms, scarred and rough, but alive with silent purpose. By the stars, whispered Rel. They came. Human ships. Deathworlders. The fleet was unlike anything the Takar had built. Their vessels were not smooth or elegant. Instead, they looked as if they had been forged in battle itself, layers of armor stacked like the plates of some enormous beast. Engines glowed with a deep blue fire. Even at rest, the ships seemed ready to leap forward. No banners announced their names, no soft lights decorated their sides. They carried only the quiet strength of survivors. Zyrek's second officer, Captain Halvek, swallowed hard. Commander, their approach speed is reckless. No species travels this fast inside a friendly system. Open a wide-band greeting, Zyrek ordered, keeping his voice steady. Remember our mission. We called for them. Halvek nodded, though his hands trembled over the controls. The lead human ship slowed, positioning itself directly before the flagship. It was enormous, longer than any Takar cruiser, with heavy turrets folded against its sides. A single channel of communication opened without waiting for permission. Static hissed through the bridge speakers, followed by a voice calm and clear. "This is Admiral Serena Holt of the Terran Alliance Fleet," the voice announced. "We received a beacon requesting assistance against the Vor Dominion. Identify yourselves." Zyrek stepped forward, letting the translator field wrap his words in human speech. "I am Commander Zirek Thal of the Takar Union. I activated the beacon. We seek alliance against a common enemy." The voice returned quickly, sharp but not unkind. "Transmit your coordinates and situation details. We are here to talk." A ripple of surprise moved through the Takar crew. These humans had crossed unimaginable distances with impossible speed, yet their tone carried no arrogance, only direct purpose. Hours later, a human landing shuttle entered the flagship's hangar. The Takar soldiers lined the platform, their ceremonial armor reflecting the shuttle's harsh lights. Zyrek stood at the center, heart steady but mind racing. Legends had painted humans as monsters. He expected giants or beasts. The shuttle door hissed open. Admiral Serena Holt stepped forward. She was human. No claws, no glowing eyes. Her form was tall but not overwhelming, dressed in a dark uniform marked by silver lines of rank. Her skin carried the warmth of a sunlit world, her eyes sharp and watchful. Behind her walked a team of officers, each carrying small devices and weapons that looked well used. Zyrek bowed respectfully. "Admiral Holt, welcome aboard the Union flagship." Holt studied the hangar with a soldier's caution before returning the bow with a slight nod. "Commander Thal, your message reached us. We were curious." Her voice carried confidence but also a quiet weight, as if every word was measured. Zyrek felt a strange mix of relief and unease. The Deathworlders were not wild creatures. They were disciplined, intelligent and frighteningly calm. "This way," Zyrek said, leading her toward the conference chamber. As they walked, Takar crew members peeked from behind consoles and corridors. Stories of humans had filled their childhoods, beings who thrived on danger, who turned hostile worlds into homes. Now those legends walked past them in neat formation, speaking softly to one another. Some crew felt disappointment. Others felt a deeper fear. If these humans could survive Deathworld 7 without claws or scales, what invisible strength allowed it? The conference chamber shimmered with soft blue light. Maps of the Vor Dominion glowed above the round table. Admiral Holt stood with her officers, studying the projections without waiting for an invitation. "This is your enemy?" she asked. "Yes," Zirek replied. "The Vor Dominion has conquered 12 sectors. Their fleets outnumber ours 5-1. They adapt to every defense we create." Holt folded her arms. "Adaptation. Good. That means they have limits." One of her officers, a dark-haired man with quick eyes, tapped the display. "Their supply lines are long and exposed. Commander, do they guard these nebula passages?" "They patrol them, but storms make travel dangerous," Zirek explained. "No Union fleet dares use those routes." The officer smiled faintly. "Then we will." The simplicity of the statement sent a ripple of astonishment around the room. Zyrek's advisors exchanged uneasy glances. The humans spoke as if storms, radiation belts, and shifting gravities were simple obstacles, not the deadly traps they had always been. Admiral Holt looked directly at Zyrek. "We can help, but we need full tactical control. Your council must agree to let us lead the engagement. If they hesitate, the Vor will crush you before talks are finished." Zyrek met her gaze. The humans had traveled across the stars, yet wasted no time with ceremony. "You ask for much," he said carefully. "Our council values shared command." "Shared command loses wars," Holt replied without raising her voice. "We don't conquer. We survive. If we fight to win. Decide quickly." Her words were not a threat. They were a statement of reality. Zirek felt a strange respect bloom in his chest. The legends had been wrong in one way. Humans were not monsters. They were survivors who spoke truth without fear. "I will speak to the council," Zyrek said. Holt gave a short nod. "Good. While they debate, my crews will begin reconnaissance." The human officers moved like a single unit, collecting data and marking star routes. Their efficiency was startling. Takar technicians struggled to keep pace. trying to understand the humans' fast, layered questions. No one shouted. Orders flowed like quiet streams, precise and confident. Later, Zyrek stood beside Holt on the observation deck. Through the wide glass, the human fleet floated against the darkness, silent and strong. Engineers worked outside their hulls with a grace that ignored the dangers of open space. "Your ships look wounded," Zyrek said, noticing the scars and patched plating. Holt followed his gaze. "Every scar tells a story. We don't hide them. They remind us that we survived." "You crossed the void in less than 2 weeks," Zyrek said. "How is that possible?" Holt gave a small, almost playful smile. "Earth teaches you to solve problems fast. Our world never waits. Oceans rise, storms strike, predators adapt. If we don't keep moving, we die. So we learn to move faster than death." Zyrek felt a chill. "Death world," he murmured. "Yes," she said softly, "but we call it home." For a long moment they watched the stars. Zyrek imagined the planet that shaped such people, a world that forced brilliance through constant challenge. He understood now why the Vor feared them even in ancient stories. Admiral Holt turned to leave. "Prepare your council. The Vor will not wait, and neither will we." As she walked away, Zyrek felt both hope and unease. The Deathworlders had arrived, carrying the strength of storms within their calm hearts. They were not the monsters of legend. They were something far more dangerous, humans who refused to lose. Across the Union, news of the arrival spread like fire. Children whispered that the Deathworlders were real. Soldiers straightened their backs with new courage. Even the cautious counselors felt a spark of possibility. But among the Vor Dominion's distant outposts, another kind of whisper began. Scouts reported strange ships with unmatched speed and fearless tactics. Commanders dismissed the rumors at first. Then the reports multiplied. Somewhere in the cold darkness, the Vor began to wonder if the old legends were true. The Deathworlders had answered the call. The planning chamber of the Takar flagship was alive with light and quiet urgency. Holographic maps floated above the central table, each glowing shape a system threatened by the Vor Dominion. Commander Zyrek Thal stood beside Admiral Serena Holt, watching as her officers projected lines of attack across the stars. The room smelled faintly of warm circuits and ionized air, a mix of technology and tension. For the first time in many cycles, Zyrek felt something unusual in the air. It was not fear. It was movement, a sense of raw energy that came from the humans who now filled the chamber. They spoke quickly, their words precise, their eyes bright with restless thought. The Takar advisors tried to follow, but the speed of human planning left them scrambling to keep pace. "Here," said Lieutenant Vega, a young human strategist with short, dark hair. He tapped a swirling nebula on the map. "The Vor keep heavy patrols around the Nabora passage, but the plasma storms make sensors unreliable. We can hide a strike force in this corridor and hit their supply lines before they know we're there." One of Zyrek's senior tacticians frowned. "Those storms destroy even reinforced hulls. No ship can survive them." Vega gave a calm smile. "Your ships can't, ours can. We've crossed worse." Zyrek exchanged a glance with Admiral Holt. She met his eyes without hesitation. "Lieutenant Vega is correct. Our hull plating and shield harmonics are designed for unpredictable environments. Your people avoid storms. We grew up in them." The Takar officers whispered among themselves. To them, the Nabora passage was a graveyard. To the Deathworlders, it was an opportunity. Admiral Holt turned to Zyrek. "Commander, if we cut their supplies here and here," she pointed to 2 other glowing clusters, "the Vor will be forced to pull back their forward fleets. That gives your border colonies time to recover and prepare defenses." Zyrek studied the plan. "You intend to fight not with strength but with movement. You would make the Vor chase shadows." "Exactly," Holt said. "Direct confrontation is wasteful. We strike, vanish, and strike again. We use chaos as a weapon." The words sent a quiet shiver through the chamber. The Takar valued careful balance and steady lines. Chaos was something to be avoided. Yet Zyrek felt the truth in Holt's strategy. The Vor had learned to predict every cautious defense. They had never faced humans who turned danger into advantage. Training began within the hour. Human soldiers and Takar crews gathered in the vast docking bays to prepare for the new tactics. Zyrek watched from a raised platform as Admiral Holt led the first drills. The humans moved with startling speed. They leapt across zero-gravity platforms, dodged laser pulses, and adapted to changing patterns without hesitation. Their bodies were strong but not heavily built, their movements efficient rather than graceful. When obstacles shifted unexpectedly, they laughed and adjusted as if unpredictability was a game. By contrast, the Takar soldiers struggled to match the pace. They followed orders carefully but slowed when conditions changed. Zarek saw their frustration grow as humans altered drills without warning. "Again," called Holt. "Adapt, don't wait for instructions. The enemy won't give you time to think." One Takar warrior slipped during a sudden gravity shift. A human soldier caught her arm and pulled her upright with an encouraging grin. "Keep moving. You're stronger than you think." Zarek felt a strange warmth in his chest. The humans were competitive, but they were also generous. They pushed their allies to survive, not to dominate. Advisor Wren stepped beside him. "They train as if the battlefield is alive," she whispered. "It is frightening and beautiful." "It is necessary," Zarek replied. Later, in a quieter chamber, Zarek and Holt studied the Vor fleet movements. The Admiral projected a series of rapid simulations, each ending with a human victory under conditions that looked impossible. "You treat battle like a puzzle," Zarek observed. Holt gave a small smile. "Battle is a puzzle. The universe throws chaos at us. We solve it or we die." "Your world truly shaped you," Zarek said. "Tell me about it." Holt leaned against the console. "Earth is restless. Storms that can tear cities apart. Oceans that rise and swallow coasts. Animals that hunt even in darkness. We learned early to expect disaster. Every generation had to be smarter, faster, more stubborn than the one before. It is not cruelty. It is training." Zarek studied her face. There was no pride, only quiet acceptance. "And because of this, you are not afraid of the Vor." Holt's eyes softened. "We fear, Commander. We just don't let fear stop us." Her words sank deep into Zarek's mind. For cycles, he had watched his people bend under the weight of fear. Now he saw a different path. Fear acknowledged, but never obeyed. 2 days later, the combined fleet prepared for its first joint operation. Human engineers worked side by side with Takar technicians, upgrading shield frequencies and installing adaptive drives. The humans shared their technology without hesitation, explaining each step in clear, patient language. Takar scientists listened carefully, amazed by the simplicity of some solutions and the boldness of others. In one bay, Lieutenant Vega demonstrated a maneuver called the slingshot drift. Using the gravity of a passing asteroid, a ship could spin around in reverse direction faster than enemy sensors could track. The Takar pilots gasped when they saw the simulation. "That will tear the hull apart," one pilot said. "Not if you trust the math." Vega replied with a grin. To prove it, a human pilot volunteered to test the maneuver in a small fighter. Before the Takar could object, the fighter shot out of the hangar, disappeared behind an asteroid, and reappeared seconds later in perfect control. The pilot's cheerful voice came through the comms. "Easy ride." Cheers erupted across the bay. Even the cautious Takar began to smile. As training continued, stories of human endurance spread through the fleet. A damaged coolant pipe flooded a maintenance corridor with freezing gas. 2 humans inside sealed the leak with their bare hands, laughing as frost formed on their suits. A young Takar recruit challenged a human engineer to a strength contest and watched in disbelief as the smaller human lifted twice the expected weight. Rumors grew that humans could survive without food for days, or breathe thin air that would leave others unconscious. Some stories were exaggerated, but all carried the same lesson. Humans adapted faster than anyone had imagined. Zarek noticed the change in his crew. Where once they whispered of human danger, now they spoke of human courage. Fear slowly turned to admiration. Advisor Wren joined Zarek during a late-night inspection. "The Deathworlders inspire them," she said quietly. "They make the impossible feel possible." Zarek nodded. "Perhaps that is their greatest strength." On the third night, the final briefing began. The chamber glowed with shifting maps of the Veil Nebula, the chosen site for their first strike. Plasma storms flickered across the hologram like living lightning. To the Takar, it looked like chaos. To the humans, it was opportunity. Admiral Holt addressed the combined officers. "The Vor believe this nebula is too dangerous for organized battle. They are wrong. We will use its storms to hide our fleet and cut their supply convoys. Our ships will move in small groups, striking fast and disappearing before they can respond." A Takar officer raised a cautious hand. "And if we are separated by the storms?" Then you improvise, Holt said firmly. You trust your training and your instincts. You do not wait for orders. Survival is your first victory. Her words rang through the chamber like a quiet challenge. Takar officers straightened their backs. Human soldiers exchanged knowing smiles. Zyrek stepped forward. This mission carries great risk. But risk is the price of freedom. We called the Death Worlders and they answered. Now we must prove worthy of their trust. The chamber erupted in determined applause. After the meeting, Zyrek walked with Admiral Holt along the observation deck. The combined fleet shimmered beyond the glass. Takar vessels now lined with human modifications. Lightning flashed in a distant nebula, lighting their faces in pale blue. Tomorrow we face the Vor, Zyrek said softly. You have given my people hope. Holt looked at the stars, her voice calm. Hope is good, Commander. But survival is better. We will give you both. Zyrek felt a steady strength settle in his heart. For the first time since the Vor invasion began, he believed victory was possible, not because the humans promised it, but because they were teaching the Union how to fight like Death Worlders. Fast, flexible, and unafraid. Beyond the glass, the storms of the Veil Nebula flashed brighter, as if answering the challenge. The galaxy's most feared survivors were ready, and the Vor would soon learn what it meant to battle humans who had been shaped by the fiercest world of all. The Veil Nebula stretched across the darkness like a turbulent storm, its swirling clouds of gas and lightning hiding secrets and danger. Commander Zyrek Thal stood on the observation deck of the Takar flagship, watching the storm rage. Each flash illuminated the fleet preparing below. Takar warships gleaming with human modifications and human vessels that seemed alive with quiet purpose. Are they ready? Zyrek asked, his voice low, almost lost beneath the hum of the engines. Admiral Serena Holt stood beside him, her gaze fixed on the chaotic nebula. We've trained for this, she said. Storms, darkness, shifting gravity, nothing here can stop us. We move, we strike, and we disappear. That is how we survive. Zyrek nodded. He had seen the humans adapt to challenges that had broken Takar fleets. Now he would see them in action against the Vor Dominion. Commander, incoming sensors, Navigator Rel announced. The Vor fleet is approaching faster than expected. They must have detected our presence. The holomap flickered. Massive ships appeared as red symbols, moving with terrifying speed and precision. Dreadnoughts, carriers, and patrols all converging toward the Veil Nebula. The Vor believed the nebula would slow any attack. They were wrong. Holt's officers moved silently. Divide into strike groups, she ordered. Alpha, Beta, and Gamma, use the storm corridors. Hit supply lines first. Delta and Epsilon will create diversions. Zyrek watched the humans execute their orders. It was as if they anticipated the Vor moves before they happened. Ships split, dodged, and slipped between lightning arcs. The Takar fleet followed, hesitant at first but slowly gaining confidence as they mirrored human precision. The first strike within minutes, Alpha Squadron had reached the Vor supply convoy. Human pilots weaved through plasma storms with ease, their ships twisting and turning in ways that defied conventional physics. Takar crews struggled to follow, their hulls battered by the turbulence, but human engineers called over comms, guiding them through every danger. Focus on the first two dreadnoughts, Holt's voice came over the channel. Use debris and storm currents to block their escape. Alpha Squadron unleashed plasma charges and micro-missiles. The Vor ships fired back, but their weapons often missed, blinded by lightning and swirling clouds. The humans moved like shadows, attacking and vanishing before the enemy could respond. Zyrek could hardly believe the precision. The stories of Death Worlders surviving impossible situations were true. They had turned chaos into an advantage, using the nebula itself as a weapon. A Takar officer called over comms, his voice trembling. Commander, they are unstoppable. Zyrek clenched his fists. Then follow them. Learn from them. The Vor response. The Vor Dominion was not easily defeated. Their fleet adapted quickly, deploying countermeasures and sending pursuit groups into the storm. Massive beams of energy lit the nebula, striking blindly at anything that moved. Yet the humans responded without fear. Gamma Squadron flanked the left carriers, Holt ordered. Use the asteroid cluster. Force them into our traps. Her pilots twisted through asteroid belts with calm precision. Takar ships followed, relying on the humans' guidance. When a Vor dreadnought fired at close range, a human ship darted in front, taking the hit but shielding the smaller Takar vessel. The human pilot's voice remained steady. "You're safe. Keep moving." Zarek felt a surge of awe. These humans had not come to conquer. They had come to survive, and to save others in the process. Turning the tide, the battle reached its peak near the heart of the nebula, a dense storm that even the Vor feared. Here the human strategy revealed its brilliance. Ships vanished into the storm, only to emerge behind enemy lines. Supply ships exploded, convoys were cut off, and Vor formations fell into confusion. Admiral Holt coordinated every movement with clarity. Beta Squadron, draw their attention north. Alpha and Gamma, circle behind. Strike at the bridge units. Delta, keep them distracted. The human crews communicated in short, precise bursts. There was no hesitation, no fear. Takar crews began to understand. This was how Deathworlders fought. They didn't overpower enemies. They outsmarted them. They used every advantage of terrain, speed, and environment. Zarek watched as the Vor dreadnoughts became trapped in the swirling plasma of the nebula. Their engines overheat, weapons misfire, and formations collapse. The humans attacked with rapid, calculated strikes, then vanished before the Vor could respond. Courage under fire. At one point, a Takar destroyer was caught in a lightning arc, its hull screaming under the stress. "We're going to break," cried the captain. "Hold position." Holt's voice rang through the comm. "Focus on the debris field. Use it to your advantage. Keep your heading steady." The destroyer shuddered and then moved, weaving through debris as if dancing with death itself. Takar crew members who had been terrified moments ago found confidence, guided by human example. When they emerged, their ship was battered but intact. Zarek allowed himself a rare smile. The humans not only survived, they taught others to survive. The Takar fleet had gained a new strength, fueled by hope and courage. The Vor collapse hours into the battle, the Vor Dominion's fleet began to falter. Supply lines were destroyed. Dreadnoughts were trapped and immobilized. Panic rippled through their ranks as strike after strike hit with precision. Zarek realized the humans were not just fighting, they were teaching. Every move was a lesson in adaptation, courage, and efficiency. The Takar fleet mirrored them, and together they became unstoppable. Holt's voice cut through the storm. "Prepare for final strike. Focus fire on the Vor flagship. It will break them." Alpha and Gamma squadrons moved in unison. Micromissiles, plasma charges, and debris traps hammered the flagship from all sides. The ship shuddered, caught in the chaos of its own fleet. Finally, with a final coordinated strike, it exploded, sending waves of energy through the nebula. The Vor Dominion's forces began to retreat, scattered and broken. Ships fled in all directions, avoiding the storm and the relentless human fleet. Zarek could hardly believe it. The galaxy's most feared enemy had been beaten in a single day, not by numbers but by courage, skill, and adaptability. Aftermath. The nebula was silent once more. The combined fleet drifted among debris and fading plasma, ships battered but victorious. Humans floated in zero-gravity bays, checking their vessels with calm efficiency. Takar crews, exhausted and wide-eyed, whispered stories of what they had witnessed. Admiral Holt walked through the Takar command deck, speaking quietly to each officer. "You did well. You fought like survivors." Zarek approached her. "You did more than fight. You changed my people. They will never be the same." Holt nodded. "They had the courage. They just needed to see it applied. Survival is in all of us, Commander. Some just need a spark." He gazed out at the stars, now peaceful again. The Veil Nebula had been a test, and the humans had turned it into a victory. The Vor would remember this day for cycles to come. Even as the fleet celebrated, Zarek knew the battle was only the beginning. The Vor Dominion was wounded but not defeated. Yet for the first time, hope burned brightly in the hearts of the coalition. The humans had arrived. They had fought. They had won. And the galaxy had witnessed the true strength of the Deathworlders. Zarek allowed himself to believe, for the first time in years, that survival and even victory was possible. The Veil Nebula had quieted. Twisted clouds of gas glowed softly, reflecting the broken and battered ships of both fleets. Commander Zarek Thal walked among the Takar crew, observing repairs, resupply, and quiet celebrations. The humans, meanwhile, moved with calm efficiency, tending to their ships without fanfare. The battle had been won, but Zarek knew the war was far from over. The Vor Dominion had been pushed back, but they would regroup. The galaxy remained dangerous, unpredictable, and full of enemies who underestimated the Deathworlders at their own peril. Admiral Serena Holt stood on the observation deck beside Zirek, arms folded. Her eyes scanned the dark expanse beyond the fleet. "The Vor will recover," she said quietly. "They always do, but they will think twice before facing us again." Zirek nodded. "Your people changed the tide. Without you, we would have lost everything today." Holt's lips curved into a small, almost tired smile. "We didn't just fight for you. We fight because survival is our nature, and because we survive, others can too." The aftermath of battle, the fleet was alive with activity. Takar engineers and human crews worked side by side, repairing hulls, recharging shields, and calibrating weapons. The atmosphere was a mix of relief, exhaustion, and newfound confidence. Zirek walked through the docking bays, stopping to speak with officers and soldiers. Everywhere, the Takar spoke of human courage, adaptability, and intelligence. Rumors of humans surviving storms, gravity shifts, and impossible attacks spread quickly. The legend of Deathworlders had been proven true. In one bay, a group of Takar soldiers watched as a human engineer repaired a hull breach. She worked quickly, using only her hands and a few simple tools. "How can you do that so fast?" asked one of the soldiers. The engineer looked up and smiled. "You adapt. You improvise. You survive. That's how we do things on Earth." The soldier stared, awestruck. "Earth," he whispered. "So it's real?" "Yes," said the engineer. "And so are we." Zirek paused to watch the interaction. For generations, humans had been whispered about as myths. Now the Takar knew they were real, and far more than legends suggested. Rebuilding and alliances with the Vor retreating, Zirek called a meeting of the coalition leaders. They gathered in the conference chamber, still tired from battle, but their eyes bright with hope. "Today," Zirek began, "we survived because of the Deathworlders. They showed us what courage, adaptability, and determination can achieve. We owe them more than gratitude. We owe them trust." High Chancellor Melek, usually cautious and reserved, spoke next. "The humans have proven themselves. Their strength is unmatched, and their wisdom in battle has saved our colonies. We must ensure that this alliance is not temporary. We must learn from them." Holt stood silently, listening. When Melek finished, she finally spoke. "The galaxy is not safe. There will always be those who wish to conquer, destroy, or enslave. But together, humans and allies can survive anything. We will not fight for glory or domination. We fight to ensure life continues. That is our purpose." Her words carried weight, echoing through the chamber. The Takar leaders, inspired by the humans, began to discuss long-term plans, training programs, technology sharing, joint patrols, and coordinated defense systems. Zirek felt a sense of relief and pride. The Takar Union would not only survive, they would grow stronger because of the Deathworlders. A quiet moment later, Zirek found Holt on the observation deck, staring at the nebula one last time before leaving for repairs. "You've done more than fight," he said softly. "You've changed how we see the galaxy. My people now understand that survival is not just about ships and weapons. It's about courage and creativity." Holt's eyes softened. "That is what Earth teaches. We have no choice but to survive. We adapt, we learn, and we help those who can be saved. But never forget, our kindness is not weakness. We will fight if necessary." Zirek nodded. "I will remember, and so will every Takar who saw today." A gentle silence fell between them. Beyond the glass, the nebula shimmered in shades of purple and blue, a reminder that the universe was unpredictable, beautiful, and dangerous. The message across the stars, as the fleet prepared to return to their home sectors, Zirek sent out communications to the coalition worlds. He relayed the story of the humans, their courage, and their strategies. His message was clear. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. "Do not underestimate any species," he wrote. "Do not rely on numbers alone. Adaptation, courage, and intelligence can turn the impossible into reality. Humanity has arrived, and with them, hope is reborn." Across distant systems, leaders received the message. Some were inspired, others were cautious. But all could feel the change. Something new had entered the galaxy. Even the Vor Dominion, regrouping on the edges of known space, received scattered reports. Confusion and fear rippled through their ranks. Rumors of Deathworlders who could strike through storms, survive impossible attacks, and lead allies with unmatched strategy spread quickly. The Vor commanders whispered to each other, We underestimated them. Lessons learned. Zirek spent time observing human crews in their routines. He noticed the little things: their calm when alarms sounded, their laughter during drills, their insistence on helping others survive. These humans were not driven by conquest nor by pride. They were driven by a simple principle: survival and the protection of life. He also noticed their discipline. Unlike the Takar, who relied heavily on rules and calculations, humans relied on instinct shaped by experience. They expected the unexpected and welcomed challenge. Their confidence was not arrogance, it was proof of their preparation. Zirek realized that the galaxy had much to learn from them, not just in war, but in resilience, creativity, and courage. A new era begins. Weeks passed as the fleet returned to the coalition sectors. Colonies once threatened by Vor forces began rebuilding. Humans and Takar worked together, teaching local defenses, training soldiers, and sharing technology. Zirek visited each sector personally, observing the effects of the Deathworlders' presence. Colonists were more confident. Soldiers were more daring. Even the counselors, once cautious, were inspired to take bolder steps in planning and diplomacy. The galaxy, shaken by the Vor invasion, began to see that survival required more than rules, fleets, or treaties. It required courage, intelligence, and the willingness to face impossible odds. A lasting warning. Before leaving the coalition fleet for their own repairs and missions, Admiral Holt called Zirek to the observation deck one final time. "Commander," she said, "remember this. Humanity is strong, but we are not invincible. There will always be those who think they can challenge us. The galaxy must learn to respect that survival is not weakness and kindness is not surrender." Zirek nodded. "We will remember, and we will honor the example your people have shown us." Holt smiled faintly. "Good. The galaxy now knows that when humans answer a call, they bring more than strength. They bring courage, innovation, and hope." With that, she left, returning to her fleet. Zirek watched the human ships disappear into hyperspace, their engines leaving faint streaks of blue light behind. The future of the galaxy. The coalition celebrated their victory, but Zirek knew the work had only begun. The Vor Dominion would recover, but the galaxy had changed. Humans had arrived. They had fought, survived, and inspired. They had taught the Takar and every allied species a new way to face danger, with courage, adaptability, and relentless determination. Whispers spread through the stars. The Deathworlders are real. They fight not for conquest, but for survival, and they cannot be ignored. Zirek stood one last time on the observation deck, looking at the calm nebula. He allowed himself a rare feeling of peace. For the first time in cycles, the galaxy seemed a little brighter, a little stronger. The call had been answered. The galaxy would never be the same, and somewhere far away on a world shaped by storms, the Deathworlders prepared for whatever challenge came next. The stars waited, and so did they.